This is Capo Palinuro, a diver's paradise hiding a dark secret. Beneath its stunning crystal-clear waters lies Europe's deadliest cave diving graveyard, with 12 lives lost and a reputation so grim, locals call it cursed. Today we're diving into two of the most harrowing tales from these treacherous caves. First, a tale that will leave even the bravest claustrophobes gasping for air. Then, we'll uncover the deadliest tragedy in these waters, a disaster that could have been avoided if not for one critical error. These are the final moments of the Capo Palinuro diving tragedies. On August 19, 2016, 12 seasoned scuba divers plunged into the mesmerizing azure waters surrounding Palinuro, Italy. The divers had set their sights on the Immersione in Parete, or immersed wall, a colossal underwater cliff teeming with marine life and punctuated by mysterious cave passageways. This particular diving site, renowned for its beauty and biodiversity, is a dream for adventurers drawn to the ocean's depths. However, just 50 meters below, at the base of this cave system, lies a sinister trap ready to ensnare unwary divers. The 12 divers swiftly made their way toward the cave's entrance, located 14 meters below the surface. Though infamous for its dangers, the unassuming opening offered little warning of the treacherous depths that lay ahead. Leading the group was Mauro Cammardella, a 49-year-old local diving legend and the proud owner of a well-regarded diving center in Palinuro. When all 12 divers hit the wall, they split off into smaller groups of 3 to explore. Cammardella's group consisted of his assistant diving instructor, Mauro Tancredi, and their close friend, Silvio Anzola, a 58-year-old diving veteran who shared Cammardella's insatiable passion for exploring the ocean's hidden treasures. They were easily the most experienced group, leaving little reason to believe they might face any trouble during their dive. At this point, all 12 were fully submerged, marveling at the stunning marine life and the dramatic contours of the immersed wall. Just an hour later, at 11:30 a.m., most of the group resurfaced at their designated rendezvous point. They were trading enthusiastic stories of the underwater wonders they just experienced, but the mood shifted abruptly when 3 of the group's most experienced divers, Cammardella, Tancredi, and Anzola, failed to emerge. At first, no one panicked. Everyone knew the trio was seasoned, and it was easy to assume they'd extended their dive to explore something extraordinary and simply lost track of time. However, as the minutes stretched into hours, unease began to grow. It was becoming evidently clear that something went very wrong. Some of the remaining divers returned to the wall to search, but stopped short of entering the cave systems. None were certified for cave diving, and they knew the risks all too well. With no success and mounting exhaustion, they finally made the difficult decision to call for help long after they should have. The Palinuro fire service responded quickly, but lacked the specialized expertise required for cave rescues. They turned to Fabio Barberi, a renowned local diver and cave expert. Now 61 years old, Fabio had spent years mapping the intricate cave systems of Palinuro. One in particular, the Grotta della Scaletta, otherwise known as the Cave of Ladders, was notoriously named for its perilous design consisting of 2 long sections of the cave that ran vertically. The entrance passageway starts horizontally and eventually intersects with a vertical shaft. Going further down the shaft, the bottom curves and opens up into a horizontal bottom tunnel. However, at the end of the tunnel lies an extremely tight restriction, ominously nicknamed the Intestine. This 16-meter passage, with its undulating walls and constrictions narrowing to less than 1 meter at certain parts, was a notorious death trap for divers. And as if the notorious twists of this restriction weren't enough, its floor is layered with a mix of sand and silt. In such a confined space, even the most skilled divers find it nearly impossible to avoid a total silt out. If the trio managed to escape the Intestine, they would face a critical decision at a fork in the path: ascend into a large tunnel above them, or press forward through the tunnel ahead. The upper tunnel, though seemingly promising, leads to a dead end with nothing but a small air pocket at the top of the shaft. Even if they reached it in time, the limited oxygen wouldn't sustain 3 people for more than a few hours. The only real chance for survival would have been to bypass the vertical shaft entirely and continue straight ahead. This path would eventually lead them out of the rock and into the open sea. But the grim reality was clear. If they had taken the correct route and made it to the back exit, they would have been found by now. Fabio kept his thoughts to himself, but he was certain the divers had perished long before he arrived. Fabio was intimately familiar with the dangers of this cave. If these experienced divers had encountered trouble, he was certain it would have been at the deadly restriction where the missing men had met their fate. Descending into the cave, Fabio navigated the tight, twisting passages with practiced precision. He swam down the vertical shaft and entered the bottom tunnel, where the intestine loomed ahead. When his flashlight pierced the darkness, it revealed nothing but a thick, swirling cloud of silt. The water was an impenetrable wall of murk, leaving him effectively blind. Realizing there was nothing more he could safely do, Fabio resurfaced. His report to the authorities was grim. The divers were almost certainly trapped, consumed by the cave's merciless conditions. Their chances of survival were nearly non-existent. Once the silt inside the cave finally settled, rescue divers ventured back to the intestine. After 4 excruciating hours of searching, they located the bodies of Cammardella and Tancredi near the entrance of the tunnel. Fabio had likely passed within mere meters of them during his initial dive, but the dense silt had kept them hidden from view. It would be several more days before Anzola was found. His body was found wedged deep within the intestine, trapped in one of its tightest, most unforgiving sections. He was so firmly trapped that it took rescuers 6 grueling days or 144 hours to free him. An investigation quickly followed, piecing together the most likely sequence of events. That day, the 3 men broke away from the rest of the group and, perhaps driven by curiosity, ventured into the cave system. They successfully navigated to the bottom tunnel and through the intestine on their way in, seemingly untroubled by its notorious dangers. However, instead of exiting through the back entrance and resurfacing, the group attempted to retrace their path to meet back at the planned location. Cammardella took the lead, with Tancredi close behind, while Anzola followed as the last to enter the restriction. But on their return journey, tragedy struck. Anzola became trapped within the tunnel's suffocatingly tight passage. Panicked, his breathing rate would have surged, depleting his air supply faster than normal. Meanwhile, Cammardella and Tancredi managed to escape to the other side of the restriction, only to realize Anzola hadn't followed. They paused briefly before it became clear that something had gone wrong within the narrow passage. Without hesitation, the 2 turned back, determined to help their friend. But in their frantic attempt to rescue him, they likely failed to notice their own air supplies rapidly depleting. By the time they grasped the danger they were in, it was already too late. Their air supplies were gone, leaving them stranded 50 meters below the surface in thick silt. To this day, the cave's legacy remains a dark one. Known as the Curse of Palinuro, the region has been the site of numerous harrowing dive tragedies. In 1984, 2 underwater researchers perished during what should have been a routine dive. By 1996, 3 Polish divers lost their lives after becoming trapped in one of the labyrinthian caves. Then, in 2012, disaster struck once more when a group of tourist divers got lost, claiming the lives of 4 divers. This incident only served to lengthen the grim list of fatalities tied to this cursed cave. The 3 divers are remembered for their courage and camaraderie, with Cammardella and Tancredi honored as heroes who gave their lives trying to save a friend. The caves of Palinuro, with their haunting beauty, remain a stark symbol of both the irresistible lure of exploration and the deadly risks that lie beneath the surface. Hey, If you're enjoying this video so far, you can help us out by giving us a thumbs up and clicking subscribe for more stories detailing the final moments of the most horrific tragedies in human history. Thanks for watching. Just 4 years before the disaster at the Grotta della Scaletta, an even darker tragedy struck just meters away, leaving the diving community reeling. On June 30th, 2012, 8 divers anchored their boat near the entrance to the Grotta del Sangue, an underwater marvel cloaked in equal parts beauty and danger. With meticulous care, the group made their final preparations and plunged into the inviting waters of Palinuro. Their goal was to explore one of the region's most mesmerizing caves, a site that had drawn experienced divers from across the globe time and again. To many, this dive seemed routine, a journey into a cave system that hundreds of skilled divers visited annually. This region, nestled along Italy's southern coast, boasts a network of legendary sea caves, including the infamous Grotta del Sangue and Grotta della Scaletta. Yet the Grotta del Sangue held a particular allure. It wasn't just its intricate passages, but the striking, almost haunting red hue of its walls that made it famous. Coated with iron-rich mineral deposits and colonies of red algae or bacteria, the cave appeared as though it were bleeding, a sight both beautiful and foreboding. In fact, it's what gave the cave its ominous name, the Cave of Blood, or Blood Grotto. The 8 divers descended toward the entrance of the Grotta del Sangue, resting just 14 meters beneath the water's surface. Their journey was led by 40-year-old Douglas Rizzo, a seasoned British diver known for his expertise. For Rizzo, this was familiar territory, a dive he had conducted many times before with no problems. At around 2 p.m., the group entered the cavern, ready to marvel at its underwater wonders. The dive unfolded smoothly, with the vibrant red walls of the cave casting an almost otherworldly glow around them. For the divers, everything was going according to plan, at least for the time being. Less than an hour after reaching the cavern, Rizzo signaled that it was time to ascend. The group began their journey back to the surface, but somewhere along the way, a critical error was made. In caves like this, with floors covered in silt, a group this size would inevitably stir it up. The silt clouded the water, creating a silt out that reduced visibility to near zero. Navigating the maze-like cave became almost impossible. As the team pushed forward, Rizzo made a devastating miscalculation. Just 10 meters below the correct exit tunnel, he mistook a side path for a way out. Because Rizzo was confident in his knowledge of the cave, he hadn't deployed a guideline to mark their route, a crucial safety measure that could have guided the group to safety. Without it, the divers had nothing to rely on but memory in an environment now cloaked in darkness. The weight of that mistake would soon become painfully clear. As precious minutes ticked by in the wrong offshoot, the tension within the group escalated into full-blown panic. The divers realized, with sinking dread, that they hadn't exited the cave. They'd hit a dead-end chamber. According to Marco Sebastiani, one of the Italian divers in the group that day, it was at this point that he noticed something alarming. Their leader, Douglas Rizzo, was visibly agitated, even panicking. The normally composed and experienced guide now seemed unsure of their next move. That's when Sebastiani's instincts kicked in. Something was catastrophically wrong. When the group turned around to retrace their steps, the situation deteriorated even further. Without realizing it, they had been kicking up more silt with every move. The path they had just traveled was now completely engulfed in a murky cloud. Visibility dropped to zero. They were trapped in a blind tunnel. Fueled by adrenaline, Sebastiani made a snap decision. Relying purely on muscle memory and instinct, he swam back through the thick, blinding silt, his heart pounding in his chest. Along the way, he stretched out his hands, blindly grasping for others in the group. He managed to grab several divers and urged them to follow. The journey back was chaotic and disorientating. Every stroke through the silty water was a gamble, but then As if by some miracle, Sebastiani caught a faint glimmer of light at the corner of his eye. In this oppressive darkness, it could only mean one thing: an exit. Desperately, he signaled to the others, urging them to follow as he navigated toward the growing light. Every inch closer felt like an eternity, but the flicker of hope drove him forward. Upon surfacing, Sebastiani gasped for air and quickly scanned the remaining group. A chilling realization hit him. There were only 4 of them. 4 more divers were still trapped below. Without hesitation, Sebastiani turned back toward the entrance, his mind racing. He plunged back into the water, heading for the fork in the cave system. The silt was still as thick as a storm cloud, swallowing any trace of visibility. He reached the familiar passageway, straining to see through the dense haze. As seconds ticked by, Sebastiani wrestled with the decision to dive deeper into the blinding void. His heart pounded, torn between the desire to save his team and the growing awareness of his own safety. But then, he glanced down at his air gauge. It was nearly empty. The cold reality settled in. If he went further, he might not make it back alive. With no other choice, Sebastiani made his way back to the surface. Rescue services arrived quickly, but were unable to enter the cave due to the lingering silt and treacherous conditions. Days passed before divers could return to the spot Sebastiani had marked on the map. There, in the suffocating confines of the cave, they found the lifeless bodies of Douglas Rizzo, Andrea Pedroni, Panaiotis Telios, and Susy Covaccini. According to police reports, all 8 divers were properly certified and equipped with adequate gear for the dive, yet one critical safety measure was missing: the guideline. A simple line, had it been deployed, would have provided the lifeline they needed to navigate through the blinding silt out. It was a precaution that could have prevented the tragedy entirely. Today, the Grotta del Sangue continues to attract divers from around the world. However, new safety protocols, including the mandatory use of guidelines, have since been implemented in an effort to ensure that no group suffers the same fate as those lost in 2012. If you made it this far, consider subscribing for more videos detailing the final moments of the most horrific tragedies in human history. Thanks for watching.